everybody. Helping Parents Heal is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting bereaved parents. Through support and resources offered, we aspire to help individuals become shining light parents, meaning a shift from a state of emotional heaviness to one of hopefulness and greater peace of mind. HPH goes a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and afterlife evidence in a non-dogmatic way. HPH affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non-religious background, and encourage open dialogue. Attendance at all HPH meetings is voluntary. All discussions that take place at affiliate-led meetings are confidential. We hope that participants will learn from and share from each other. Zoom meetings run by HPH leaderships are not confidential. These meetings typically feature guest presenters and are posted on YouTube so that affiliate members worldwide can watch and benefit. Neither type of HPH meeting is designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers, allowing parents to learn about many possible ways to heal. This includes presenters covering progressive topics such as afterlife evidence and connecting with children who have passed. The views expressed by our guest speakers may or may not reflect the opinions of Helping Parents Heal leaders and members. So we ask that you take from their presentations whatever may benefit you personally.
Thank you, Lynn. Let me read Daniel's bio and then I'll turn it over to him. In January of 2017, while out to dinner in Boston for a business trip, Daniel sat next to a new coworker and their lives would change forever. As they started to get to know each other, Daniel started getting visions, pictures, and feelings that he did not completely understand. He had had this happen before, but when it did, he would just deliver the subtle message and didn't think much of it. But this time it was different. It was much more intense and powerful. After about 45 minutes and many tears, they had no doubt that somehow his mate's deceased husband was with them in spirit. The messages her husband was relaying to her were spot on, things Daniel could have never known about her and her family, and confirmed that he was very much still a big part of her life, even though he passed away. Some of his messages were funny, yet some were more serious, but they were healing to her, and that made her feel so good. The messages were of pure love for her and for their children. It was awesome. Even after this, being a skeptic, Daniel still did not believe that it could be possible to speak to people who had passed away. Maybe he had gotten lucky and guessed all those things. After all, it was against everything he was ever taught. Growing up Catholic and then becoming born-again Christian in high school, people did not communicate with the dead. It was strictly forbidden. Daniel was taught in his Catholic elementary school that one could not even talk to God unless it was through a priest. Not only that, he thought that when we die, we go to heaven or hell, and that was it. After that night, he was on a journey to find out what this life really is all about, regardless of everything he was ever taught. This is exactly what he asks of you. Be skeptical, but be open-minded. Please check out Daniel John's 2 new books, Why Are We Here? And Journey Through Many Mansions. Welcome. And tonight we're going to have Daniel talk to us about his new book, Journey Through Many Mansions.
What a nice bio. Just kidding. So can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you great. And it is a wonderful bio.
Okay. First of all, thank you very much. Second of all, I apologize for the setup. My son had karate, my daughter had dance, and now my other son has basketball tonight. And so I've just been running around from practice to practice. So this is the best I could do. So sorry for the, lack of being in a professional setting with a proper dress. But no, I wanted to just kind of preface the book. I know we're probably not doing many sessions tonight unless it happens, but I want to kind of share with you all about the book and a little bit of what inspired it. And then we can answer questions about the book in general or mediumship. So the title is called Journey Through Many Mansions, and the subtitle is Navigating Grief and Understanding Mediumship. The book is intended to help people understand that we are truly souls living a human experience. And when we or our loved ones, quote unquote, die, they don't die. It's far from it. And they're very much with us. And so throughout the book, I help you navigate through your own grief and then subtly and then powerfully bring through mediumship and how it works, why I do it, a little bit about my story and how I discovered it, and then some kind of tips and tricks on how to communicate with your own loved ones. I always tell people, and I say it throughout the book, that you don't need a medium to connect to your loved ones. They communicate in so many beautiful ways. We just have to tune our dial to get into or to understand their messages. Part of it is paying attention and understanding how spirit communicates. And the other part is what I mentioned in my first book, which is called Why Are We Here?, which is how to live your life with love and a higher vibration so that you can connect to that spirit world and that energy and that dimension a little easier. And what are those things? Praying with whatever religion or non-religion, something. I always say a prayer is a positive thought with an intention is my definition of a prayer, a non-dogmatically. I do come from a Christian background. I do talk from that perspective, but I'm open to all religions, all beliefs. And I make that very clear throughout both my books. The intention for the second book especially is to help you navigate through your grief and give you some red flags as well. And if you do go to seek out a medium, I have a couple chapters on and a couple of things throughout the book on what to be careful of if you go seek out a medium. I talk about some pricing and maybe things to be have some red flags about. Throughout the book, I do make it very clear that we're part of something greater that is beyond our understanding. You can call it God, universe, source, Allah, whatever your choice is. I do cover the definitions of the word psychic and medium because I think they're often confused. I have a chapter on the ethics of mediumship, which sounds kind of ironic to some people, but it's very accurate because people who do have a gift like this really have to be cautious and careful and have other people's best intentions in mind. I do go over what to expect from a session with a medium. So it kind of gives you a little bit of an understanding if you've never sought one out before on maybe what you can expect by going in there. And then at the end of the book, I share 5 stories. And I won't ruin them, but I'll give you a little hint towards them. And there are 5 stories that Spirit told me to include in the book that are just, they give you goosebumps. The first is chapter 16. It's about a young man named Buddy. I don't know if you guys know who Buddy is. Buddy is a DIPG patient who passed away at 9, who came through for his mother on a Facebook Live in front of 300 people, powerfully. And her story is in this book. There's a story about a woman who booked a session with me and 8 months in advance, and she passed away the same exact day of her session. And then she came through for her family on the session that she booked. And the stories in the book. The other one is from a woman who saw my son's video about his home run, and her son wore the same number, same colors, the same jersey my son did. And it just happened to pop up on her For You page, and she realized I was a medium, reached out to me. I was booked, but that didn't stop him from connecting to her on 3 different occasions, just through TikTok chat and the phone call. So I include that story as well. And then there's another story in there as well. And then there's another story of, and I think if anyone follows me on Facebook, I had a dream one night where this young man came to me in spirit and gave me detailed, specific information that I remembered when I woke up. I posted it on Facebook, and within 2 hours, we found the family of this young man. And I called them, and he came through for them powerfully, accurately. And their family tells the story of some random medium who reached out to them and was able to give them some, their son was able to use someone here in the physical world to provide peace and love to their family at a very specific time that they were struggling. So that's a general idea of the book. And I have a Ferris wheel on here because I'm a big Ferris wheel fan. I think it's very symbolic of life. On the back, my daughter drew this Ferris wheel. She's only 7. It's kind of hard to see it, but she drew it and her little name is down here. And I think it's symbolic of life because you can take the ride, but the ride keeps going and going. And there's different carousels, and there's different ways you can look, and it goes faster and slower, and you can go through different mansions. And the last thing is, Journey Through Many Mansions is a play off of what I believe Jesus has said, something along the lines of, my Father's house has many mansions. And I do believe that when we transition from this world, and all of our loved ones who have transitioned from this world to the next, they're just in some other dimension or reality, but it's not too far from here. I feel like the veil is thin, and they are very much participating in our lives, every day of our lives, and everything. A lot of people will say to me, "Oh, Daniel, can you please tell my mom I said hi, or tell my son?" No, you can. They can hear you. They tell me it all the time. I've done over 25, I'd say close to now 3,000 sessions over almost 5 years. And the overwhelmingly clear thing is that they are with us. They love us. They're participating in our lives. They know about all our events, and they're rooting us on. And what are they rooting for? They're rooting for us to choose love-based decisions. It's the simplest way to put it, but not having fear and embracing love and trusting in something greater, right? We don't want to get dogmatic and call it God. I word it God, but I think that doesn't even do justice to this universal, unconditional, eternal love and light that we're part of. And I think just trusting that there's something more, and there is a purpose behind what we're doing here, is the main premise behind these two books, which the sole intent is to help you in your journey, whether it has to do with grief with this book or with just overall life. And kind of this book covers a little bit about forgiveness and finding your purpose. And I share about how I discovered this gift that I use to help others. There's a little bit about meditation and energy work in here as well. So that's a little bit of a blurb on both the books. And I'd love to answer any questions if some came up in the chat.
Thank you. Thank you, Daniel. I loved the book, and I loved those chapters at the end. They do give, gave me goosebumps. So I appreciated that. That was a great way to end it. You talk in the book about, we always call mediums psychic mediums, but you did talk a little bit about how there's a difference, and that if someone's looking for a psychic to predict their future, then you're not their guide. Do you just want to talk a little bit about the difference in psychic and mediums, and explain a little bit about what you talked about?
Yeah, that's great. So I'm a word guy. I'm a definition guy. I'm a very pragmatic, logical, left brain thinker, right? So I try to make sure that when I use words, they're proper. And I try to encourage people to look at the root, look at the words and the root where it came from. So according to many, Oxford and Webster, all psychic means is obtaining information without the five senses. All right. So if you get some information, no matter what it is, maybe a song's going to play on the radio, or you think of someone and they call you 5 minutes later. That's psychic information. It's being able to, the verb or a noun is someone who is able to get information without any scientific explanation. There's really no way or understanding of how they obtain the information. And they obtained it with a sixth sense, why they call it extrasensory perception. So that is psychic. It has nothing to do with telling the future or knowing all things or predicting this or predicting that. It's just being able to access information without scientific explanation. So I will give an example. I was in Panera about a month ago, and I intuited, like psychically, right? It came to me. I have no clue how. The words in my mind said, tell, and I looked at the girl. They made me look at her in my mind and said, tell her to call her father. And I was like, you think you're making it up, right? It's even 5 years as a medium, I still feel like you're fabricating it. So I trusted, which I always tell people, trust is one of the most important things when it talks about spiritual work, because it doesn't work like you and I communicate. So I went up to her and I always ask permission. I teach a class. And I tell my students, always ask permission. Don't just go up to someone and say, hey, I have your dead person here or whatever. You have to be very careful with that. I cover that in the ethics chapter. But I said, hey, are you open to a message? And she said, yeah. And I said, have you not called your father in a while? And she went, I'm not kidding you, as white as this book. She went white. And she goes, are you like a medium or something? And I said, I'm a messenger of God. And he wants to tell you that it might be a good idea to call your father. And I said, but it's up to you. I'm like, you have free will. I can't force you to do it, but that's what I'm supposed to tell you. Her flush went to red, like beet red. And she said, that means so much. Thank you. That was it. So how that came to me was psychically. I didn't know it. It had nothing to do with dead people, right? It had nothing to do with someone's past, at least that I know of. And I don't even know what happened. But that information came psychically. I didn't know how it came to me. Okay, that's an example of like psychic information. Nothing to do with the future, nothing to do with anyone who's passed. The word medium is just the halfway between two extremes. So if I tell you something, Carol, to tell someone else, you're the medium. It doesn't even, I don't even have to be passed away. A medium is a newspaper. A medium is a radio station. A medium is the light bulb. It takes the energy from the source and brings it to your eyes, the medium being the in-between. When it comes to the spiritual world and the work we do, a medium is someone who connects the physical world to the spiritual world. So, if, me being a Christian, I believe that all the writers of the Bible were mediums. Jesus, Paul, they obtained their information, especially Paul, he mentions it in Galatians 1:11, about how he obtained it psychically or like from spirit. So it's the in-between between the spirit world or home and here. So that is a medium. So anyone can be a medium, and it doesn't even have to be a medium who's passed. You may be a medium for a friend. Hey, tell Joe that I love dinner. You tell Joe, you're the medium. All you are is the in-between. So I try to teach people that, because some people, based on their beliefs, and I was the same way, they get scared at the word. They get scared at both words. When realistically, psychic, it just comes from a natural part of who you are. From what I understand in the spirit world, we communicate without words and mouths, and we just have a knowing. We're naturally psychic. When you connect to that part of you, you have the ability to obtain information with a part of you that's beyond you, right? And then the medium is just you're an in-between. And I think we're all mediums, and I think we're all psychic. And I've heard other mediums say, oh, psychics are mediums are psychic, but psychics aren't mediums. But a psychic, someone who can connect to information, is very well capable of just passing a message on to someone. But then you get into semantics of what it is. But that's just kind of a general explanation of the difference between the two. And sometimes, and you can even look it up. I covered Oxford, Webster, Wikipedia, all the definitions are there, and they explain it the same way. And it's the opposite of what most people think. Like, people think psychic is, oh, they know the future, or I'm going to go to them. And then to your last point, I don't know the future. I don't claim to know the future. In my opinion, only God knows the future. And I always tell people to be very careful about going to pay someone to access information that you're very well capable of receiving. How can you receive it better? Smiling, loving, listening to music, eating healthy, exercising, praying in whatever form you want, and giving up vices. For me, it was gambling, it was drinking, it was coffee, you name it, I had to give it up. And it allowed me to raise my vibration so that I can connect to the spirit world a little easier to help people like you,
Thank you for that. And when you said that that we have our own abilities, and I won't give away your book, but you talked about a situation where there was a time where you actually went to a few different psychics for some guidance, and they really didn't direct you, and they didn't direct you properly. And I loved that you said you can get your own answers without seeing a psychic. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of praying to whatever you believe in. You can call it the higher self, or your soul, or God, or Jesus, or spirit, or Allah, whatever your belief is. There's something more to this human dimension. And when you pray and lean on and trust that, you can get guidance all yourself. I'm a big Matthew 7:7, right? Asking you shall receive. And if you have a pure intention, you will get answers. And you'll get them when source or God thinks you need them, not when you do. I think it's okay to go to mediums. I think it's sometime okay to go to someone to help guidance, to help guide you, because I do believe God puts certain people in your life at certain times. But I always tell people to be a little more reactive as opposed to proactive. Don't keep going searching for a medium, to get all these answers. Sometimes you just have to sit back, pray, and wait for the answer. It's happened to me. I've had to wait 6 months or a year for certain things, but I do it. Now, in the book, I talk about a time where, because it was a personal situation for me, I needed answers now, and that happens. But just be very careful when you go seek that information, because we're all human. And I think the best way we can find answers is within ourselves, by either praying or leaning on something greater that a lot of us call God.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you talk about it a little in your bio when you said that earlier, before you became a medium, you just believed in heaven or hell. And I loved how you said that you don't believe hell is a place. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I don't believe in hell. I don't think any of us do here. So
Yeah, I believe in the word, and I believe it's just a state of mind, right? And the best way to, if you've ever seen the movie Soul, it's a Disney movie, and the movie Soul, and I think as souls, we get stuck in a lower vibration, right? These things we call demons or demonic or sin or hate or fear, and we get stuck in that, whether we're in the physical form or in the soul form. But I personally, from all my experience, the hundreds of books I've read, the thousands of sessions I've had, now I'm not ignorant to the fact that it could be possible, but I'm under the understanding that this God, we call it, right, which doesn't do justice to what it really is, or he or she, loves us unconditionally. And there's no, eternal fiery damnation that he's going to send, or it is going to send its children or part of itself to this purgatory forever. I've haven't, there's nothing that's pointed to me in that direction at all, besides some random scripture that people can misinterpret from my opinion. Even souls who've come to me, I would say there's probably 50 to 100, maybe more, who have taken it upon themselves. I wanted to read that comment. Who've taken it upon themselves to transition to the next world. They're okay. I have to be very careful when I word that to certain people, because I'm not saying, I don't believe it's okay to do it yourself if you're not supposed to, but from the ones who have transitioned in that manner, they've come through, and most of them, if not all of them, are doing great. They're working on things from where they are. And yeah, I 100% have not one inkling that there's this fiery place. I do, however, believe that we can, even in human form, can get into a vibration that is lower than what we would like, and that to me is quote unquote what you would call hell.
And you talk about protecting yourself when you before a reading, and I know many mediums will, just putting a golden bubble around you. And is that just to help raise that vibration?
In my opinion, when you say a prayer or make a statement and you put that thought or words into the air, you're setting an intention. And your intentions create your reality, in my opinion, right? It's almost like a combination between free will and destiny. So yeah, like when I'm done with a session, I'll sit under a light bulb and I just picture it's God's like love and golden lights splashing on me. Sometimes I'll take a shower after a session. I'll just let all the energy kind of go into the drain and release it. Is it really doing it? I don't know, but my intention is there. So therefore, I think it is. So protection, and I talk about this in the book with communication with spirit, but also in the human world with energies that are around you physically. It's very important to be very conscious of your energy, because I think we're all energy at our core, and to be very protective of it. And I don't think it's a bad thing or sinful to not commiserate, not be around people who, send out a negative vibration or a not loving light. It's not a bad thing to steer away. You can still send them love, but from a distance, it's not a bad thing. And it took me a while to realize that, because I want to be nice to everyone and love everyone, and I do love everyone, but sometimes you have to separate and protect. So yeah, protection I talk about also in the first book as well. I think even maybe a little bit more. And it's just something we have to be conscious of. You can feel, if I walk into a place where I knew there was an argument, I could feel it in the air. And I think a lot of us can. I don't think I'm, you'll see, I don't think anyone is more special than anyone else. I think we're all equally special. But some of us have an ability to tune into energy a little bit more sensitively. And in those cases, and even in regular cases, but all the more then, it's important to protect yourself with a positive thought. And you can make up your own. I teach my students to come up with their own protection prayer. And dear God, thank you for your love and light. Please keep me safe and full of your love as I go about my day today. That's it. Or after a session, I'll say something similar, and please release any energies that may be attached to me and send them on their way towards your light. And just simple intention. It doesn't, we don't have to be dogmatic or systematic or cultic about the words and the prayers. Just come from the heart. That goes with prayer and protection, but also everything we do in this world.
Yes. And one of the things I love that you said is that although you are Christian, when people ask you what your religion is, you say, my religion is love. So I thought that was beautiful. I have a question here, and I know that one of the moms is asking, and I'm sure that lots of our parents on here are wondering the same thing. And you spoke about it the last meeting, and it's just, I think it's really helpful. She says, Daniel, do you have an answer for those Bible friends who say mediums are sinful?
So the short answer is to let them believe what they want to believe. Because I've found myself over the years trying to like convince certain people, but you're not going to change them. That's a short answer. If someone's like, that's demonic, you need to stop. Okay. I'm sorry you feel that way. I don't believe that. You have a right to your own belief, but I love you anyway. That's it. Don't try to switch them. That's the extreme of like, cynic, skeptic, never going to believe. But there's a chunk, and an example is I'll get a Instagram message. Hey, Daniel, I saw your work. I think it's interesting. Seems like you're a good dude. I was raised Christian. I see you're Christian, and I was always taught that what you do is wrong. Can you help me understand that? Those are the ones where I'm kind of like, okay, and then what I'll do is defer to my book, right? Because in chapter 7 in this book, and chapter 6, I go into depth. Okay. But if you get the in between, there's lots of routes you can go, lots of ways you can go. But the general way is you can hand them the Bible and say, show me in the Bible where Jesus, wow, is that sorry. I don't know if you can hear me. I heard the dog there. Tell me in the Bible where Jesus talked about mediumship. Because they can't, because he didn't, not in a negative way anyway. And so some of them will go to the Old Testament, but I will preface this and say, don't waste the energy and go this route, but I will give a few things. Never once did Jesus ever talk about mediumship, not once. In Matthew 17, he goes up on a mountain and talks to Moses. Moses was dead. Jesus is a medium. I mean, he did it right in the Bible, right after he comes down from the mountain. According to scripture, God says something along the lines of, I'm pleased with my son, right after he talked to Moses, right? Some people will say, oh, well, Jesus is God, right? And then you're getting into a whole nother thing. But generally, it talks more in the scripture and the gospels about judging others and not understanding the full meaning of God's plan more than it does about mediumship, way more. The other thing is, I mentioned earlier, Paul's a medium, Jesus was a medium, Moses is a medium. All medium is a halfway between two extremes. We wouldn't have a Bible if it wasn't for mediums, people who are able to connect to God. They're mediums. It's just by definition the truth. The other thing is, a lot of people are looking at the Hebrew Bible. They're looking at the Torah. There's not a lot, but there's many scripture in Deuteronomy, Leviticus, Kings, Samuel that really frown upon mediumship. This is from an educational standpoint. This is the Hebrew Bible. There's things in the Bible that stoning your kids to death, not being around women when they're unclean. According to Jesus' ministry and according to scripture, he completely defied ancient laws, was performing miracles on the Sabbath, was not stoning people to death. He came to right some of the old, not wrongs, but some of the old ways. And we can't really, as true Christians, someone who is going to judge someone for something they don't know about, that's number one, can't use the Hebrew Bible, the Torah, to use that to condemn and judge someone, because Jesus didn't even follow a lot of those ancient laws. So, but the best one is like hand them the Bible and say, well, show me where Jesus said that. Sometimes, and again, I cover this in my book, but sometimes they go to Acts. There's a story in Acts about a woman who had a gift and they removed the spirit, and it's taken completely wrong. And I cover that in the book. And then they talk about Saul, how he went to a medium. And according to scripture, it wasn't because Saul went to a medium. It was because what Saul's intention was when he went to a medium. He banned all the mediums in the world and then went to see one. And why did he do it? He wanted to kill David. Do you think God would be happy that going to see a medium to kill someone, as opposed to a parent who wants to just connect and make sure their child's okay and with him? It's all about your intention. And I'm teaching a Bible study coming up in January. And my goal in teaching the class is to teach people to read the book with love. If you read a scripture one way and I read it another way, and we have completely differing views, but we're both rooted in love, we are both supposed to read it that way, and that's okay. It's when we get into this extreme fundamentalist, dogmatic, forceful way of reading certain religious books like the Bible where we get in trouble. That's my upbringing. I choose Jesus. I love his teachings, but I look at them a lot different than a fundamentalist, but that's okay. But I think if you're rooted in love, when you read it, that's the best way. It's just all about love. And so the first answer, short answer would be, don't go there with them. Say, I'm sorry you don't believe it. I do, and I have a right to my own beliefs, but I appreciate that. Lead with love, because all they are is they fear what they don't understand. Or maybe they were taught something that they don't really know why they were taught. It's called cognitive dissonance. It's stuck. And until they experience it, but some people aren't supposed to. And I will end on the fact that some people aren't supposed to go to mediums. Pray about it. I actually had one situation ever where the woman's son told her, she was a mother of a son who passed, and he said, do not go to a medium. And she told me this. And then 6 months later, she booked an appointment with me. And I didn't understand. I'll read that in a second, or answer that question in a second. And I said, why did you book? I reached out to her because I knew her. And she said, well, the song came on. I was thinking of my son. And I was like, all right, maybe she's really struggling. The session was terrible. He barely came through. He was a little aggressive when he did, which is not my personality. And she was very disappointed. And I ended up refunding her. And I just said, don't see mediums anymore. Like, it's not for, like, you can connect with him. It's a beautiful, she can hear him speak. You don't need a medium, so I do feel like that certain scripture exists so that some people aren't supposed to, consult that way. A lot of people that have faith, they really don't need that. Some people who have loved ones who passed away, they're good. They have so much faith. And it's not that us in this group don't have faith. It's just that sometimes it takes a little bit of education and understanding and connection to bridge the gap between you and the spiritual world. And that's why I do what I do. So just as a coverall, don't waste the energy. Don't try to convince them, because I did it for years. I would show them this scripture and I go back with this and they come back with this. And it was just a waste of energy. But in the general way, Jesus never spoke about mediumship except for when he was one. Someone said, well, the class costs money. It is $7 a week. One of that $7 goes to Heaven for the Homeless, which is the nonprofit I organized. And there also is a fee, so I really don't make much from it. It takes about 10 to 20 hours actually per class to put the whole thing together. Hopefully it'll get less as time goes on. So I don't make a lot from it, but it does go into my new ministries, which I'll be donating a lot to different charities and stuff like that. But it's only $7 a week, and you can join one week, not join the other. And you can sign up on my website for the Bible study.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I was going to mention that you donate on your readings. I had read in your book, the 50%, and I think that's beautiful. And I could say, for me, readings were my readings, especially early on before I can hear Tyler myself and talk to him myself. I could say that was my best therapy ever. I mean, I could have sat through 50 grief counseling sessions. They did not help me. I mean, I know they help people, so I'm not discouraging that. But for me, nothing helped me like the readings I had. And even now, I don't need them because I know, I don't need proof. I hear Tyler, but I still think it's fun sometimes. It's just, for me, it's really great to have that, I don't know, that middle validation. So I think they're wonderful. And I think it's a shame when people don't want to do it. And again, I don't want to judge them. That's their journey. But I just think it's very healing. And any message that I've ever heard is filled with nothing but love. So
yeah.
Would you say, because you say that you believe that, and I wrote it here, you said, Spirit has told you over and over that when it is your time to go home, it's your time. There are no accidents. And I think that's important because as parents, we always feel like, what could we have done to change the outcome? So I guess you believe in, in that destiny. Do you believe in a soul plan that we kind of plan our lives in? I know we have free will, but if you want to speak about that a little.
Yeah, I 100% believe that, and this is the best way I can explain it. There's a great book by Robert Schwartz called Your Soul's Plan. And he explains it that the destiny is like it's like a video game. The programmers of the game put in the parameters, and they're big. A lot of things can happen within the game, but within that game, there's free will, and you can go, and there's millions and millions of ways and things you can go within that window of destiny. There's free will within. However, I do believe, and from what they've shared with me, with some small, random, weird circumstances, small, random, 1 in a million type of things. When it's your time, it's your time. And it could be a week, it could be a month, whatever. But when the soul is ready to go, it's going to go. And there's really nothing we can do to prevent it 99.99999% of the time. So within that destiny, there are certain souls that will leave our physical reality so that we can accomplish whatever it may be. And I've noticed a lot. I've done over 1,000 sessions, probably close to it. I haven't counted, but between 800 and 1,200 sessions for parents who've lost their children. And the amount of responsibility and healing and purpose that comes, for instance, for you, I read your book when I had COVID, right? And it helped me, and I loved it. I love reading your experiences. And your purpose was to write that so that you could, even if one person read that book and it changed their life, that could ripple to 100, 200, 1,000 other people. So there's this big web of design. And when our time to go is our time to go out of a reality, it's our time. So a lot of times the spirit will come through and say it's not their fault, someone else's fault. There's nothing they could have done different or better. And what that does is release some of the guilt and some of the shoulda, woulda, couldas, because I'm a big believer that there's this destined plan for our soul. And there's certain things and certain plans that we just cannot get out of. And I think death is one of those things that it can very rarely be changed. There's actually a great movie called The Adjustment Bureau. It doesn't have to do so much with passing as it does with a love story, but I do believe it kind of works similar to that, where we have this destiny and we could take a different path, but the universe is going to nudge us on to a better path. So yeah, if you've experienced, and obviously everyone has here, where they've experienced the loss, please take the shoulda, woulda, couldas and the guilt, and please trust it. Almost every session I've had comes through with some sort of like, there's nothing you could have done to change the outcome, that it was part of God's plan. And there's a big purpose behind those of us who are left behind.
I agree with you. I believe that. I feel like Tyler has shown me proof of that over and over. And I have parents on here saying, thank you so much, that helps them so much with their guilt, that's so comforting. So thank you for that. You also talked a lot, a little bit about near-death experiences. And you said at first you thought that near-death experiences were attributed to hallucinations or dreams. However, as you continued your studies, you have completely changed and see them as very real. Do you want to discuss that a little bit as well? Because near-death experiences, I went on a mission looking for them early on, and there's some incredible stories out there.
Yeah, I mean, millions of people would have to be lying and making up stories, and yeah, possibly they are. But I've read, Jeffrey Long's book, Raymond Moody's book. I actually just read a book recently. It's called From Light. I'll get you the title before we go. If it's by Vincent Tolman is the author. It's like From Light to Love, and he shares his near-death experience. And there's just too much commonality. And I'm a good people reader, and I watch the YouTube videos, and I've watched hundreds of YouTubes of people telling their stories. And there's so much truth that resonates from their eyes, their mannerisms, their voice, their emotion, that tells me what they experience is something that's real. Yeah, as a skeptic can attribute it to hallucinations and all that stuff, but these people come back with gifts. They come back with love. Their lives change. They lead. So even if it isn't real, there's something there that's changing them, that's more beautiful than we can ever explain, describe. And I do cover a little bit about NDEs, near-death experiences, in both books. But yeah, the light after death. I firmly believe that these millions of people have experienced something real that we'll all experience when we transition. Leaving the body. And I cover this in my book, leaving the body, seeing your loved ones, doing a life review. There's even some people, I think about 5% of people have hellish experiences. And they come back because they needed that to live better lives. So all those people, most of the people, and I've researched this, who've had hellish experiences were not on the right path. They were in a very low vibration. They were not doing good ethical things. And they came back and started nonprofits and going to church and doing all these beautiful things and became a believer in something greater because God saved them from that pit. But I also think that universe or God used that scare tactic because there is healthy fear. I do believe there's some healthy fear out there to let them get into a state in their current life that they change the world and they're doing beautiful things after they led a life of sin. And so, but the majority of near-death experiences, Mary Neal's another one. She was kayaking in Chile and she had all these revelations, and you look at her and watch her testimony. It's so legit. There's not 1 ounce of my being that thinks she's lying or joking. And most of them don't do it for any money. They'll do interviews for free. You know, I actually have Vincent coming on next month on my new show to tell his story to people, because everything he shares in the book resonates with everything I've researched, even like privately researched. There's no way he would have saw it about some of the messages and stuff he's brought back. It's so powerful. So yeah, and if anyone is on here, I know you mentioned the Christianity. There's a lot of Christian writers. In fact, Vincent's one of them who've written about their experiences, and they're kind of putting their reputation at risk because people attribute it to hallucinations or liars or whatever. But they're putting themselves on the line just to bring back love and bring back information that can help us. Someone asked,
Well,
"What's
and
in?"
I've known. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. No, I just saw the question.
Oh, what is his new show?
So I'll just do this and then real quick while I'm here. I was sick last week. I had the flu or something, and I was laying in bed, and God told me to stop doing my Monday night lives. I used to do Monday night lives on Facebook. This last Monday was the first one without after 4 years. My first one where I was like, okay, I'm not going. And I would do mediumship sessions for people. Now he wants me to do this show. I already have the logo and I'm getting the set all ready for it. It's going to be on TikTok, streamed on TikTok. And we're going to bring people on, like Vincent's coming on next month, to share their story from tragedy to triumph. That's what it's called, the Tragedy to Triumph Talk Show. And we're going to bring on people, some planned and some random, to share their success story, how they got through their tragedy and now how they're triumphing. I actually have a mother who lost her son who's coming on in the month of January or February, and she's going to share her story. She started a nonprofit. She's doing better now than she was when her son was alive. And it's so inspirational to even hear, or I can't even fathom that. But she's so powerful and so full of love. And she realized that God's plan was for her to have her son transition in her experience. And I believe thousands and thousands of people can benefit from hearing her story. So I'm going to interview her on the show and let her tell her story so that even one person who've lost their child can get inspired by her passion or perseverance. And that's what the new show is going to be, to allow people to tell their story that needs to be heard.
Thank you. I'll be anxious to see it. Now, you talk about how mediumship, I mean, obviously we all have the abilities, and sometimes it could be extremely subtle, and meditation obviously helps you trust it and get into that state. But as far as mediumship and being subtle, would you describe a little bit about when you meditate? Just do you because some people will say they just, they can meditate in nature. Do you actually sit and pray and close your eyes, or?
Sometimes. I sometimes do that. For me, meditation is just a conscious awareness of your thoughts. So I'll be driving, sitting at a red light, look at a tree, take a breath in and enjoy the beauty of it. And that's a form of meditation. I don't sit in silence anymore. Usually I'll do it maybe once or twice a week. Sometimes I meditate myself to sleep. But a lot of times I'll just take my thoughts, throw them away, focus on my breath for a little while. I do get regular acupuncture. But most of my meditation is just before I go to bed. It's prayers. And then I just kind of close my eyes and really just focus on the breath and kind of meditate myself to sleep. Don't overthink meditation. It's super simple. Just focus on your breath and try to let your thoughts go. And then when a thought comes up, which it will, recognize that you're thinking instead of breathing, and let the thought go and go back to your breathing. That's meditation. It's meditation practice. Only twice in 4 years have I, for like 3 seconds, have I gotten to like a meditative state where I was like vibrating, like, and it felt so good. for 3-4 seconds. So don't have the expectation that you're going to float and travel and, do all this crazy stuff. It's just a form of letting your thoughts, recognizing you're having thoughts and then letting them go. As far as the messages, I always tell people, think about Mickey Mouse in your mind. Just think about Mickey, think about his ears and his nose and his outfit. And your thought that you just had, that's how it comes to me. I don't hear them. I don't see them. I just think of Mickey, but what's what they tell me. And I'll give one example real quick. And I cover it in my book. The spirit showed me Twinkies. That was it. I just thought of Twinkies, nothing more. That's how mediumship works. And I said, do you have twins in the family? She says, no. I said, who loved the Twinkies? And she's like, nobody. I mean, nobody. And I'm like, well, Twinkies either means twins or Twinkies. And she goes, could it be the Minnesota Twins? And I was like, yeah, I guess it could be. Well, her mom was telling her through showing me the Twinkies that her and her daughter had a great experience at the baseball game, which was the Twins. And it led into other messages about their relationship to prove that it was really her. Of all things, twins. So I get symbols and feelings and pictures. If I see raisins, I have to talk about California or raisins. If I see, a bucket with a hole in it, that's a symbol for my wanting to tell the person there's nothing they could have done to prevent what happened. But sometimes, and I had one last night where the woman's husband came through, clear as day, names, details, and it has to do with the cosmos, her energy, my energy. And I said at the end of the session, I said, why is he playing me What a Wonderful World, like Louis Armstrong? And she goes, that's the song we played at his funeral, of all songs. And so sometimes, and millions of songs. So sometimes the spirit can be so powerful and my energy could be just right. And her energy was so right that it allowed him to share with her the song that they played at his funeral with a follow-up message of thank you for taking care of me. And it was her husband who passed after 37 years. So it can be super strong. And then sometimes it can be really subtle. There's a lot of factors that play into it.
That's funny that you say that, because you talk about piggybacking and how some messages could be for others. And you just started talking about that song, It's a Wonderful World. And that was one of my songs with Tyler in the beginning, because he used to make jokes and he would change his voice. And so whenever we hear that song, we'll stop and we'll say, and that was early on. And now you just said that. So that's kind of a little bit of a message for me, I guess, piggybacking. So that was going to be what I was going to ask you next is, you have a section on piggybacking, and I'd like you to talk a little bit. I mean, most of us know what it is, but some of us don't. When we have gallery readings and people start saying piggybacking, I'll see parents actually say, what do they mean piggybacking? What's piggybacking? So if you want to just talk a little bit about that. I know you talk about it in your book.
Yeah, if you're in a gallery session or you're going to see Teresa Caputo or John Edward, and there's hundreds or thousands of Tyler Henry, and there's thousands of people there, pay attention. Because what'll happen is, and it's illogical, it's completely human illogical, but what'll happen is spirit will team up from the other side to give multiple people multiple messages at the same time. But don't stretch it, right? So one time I had a session, or actually, it's even better maybe to share this one. Teresa, in one of her books, talked about two women who were sitting next to each other in a group of 1,000 people. And the women both lost a son on the same day. They had the same name and they had the same birthday. It was something completely insane, but they never knew each other. So spirit orchestrated them to be there at the exact same time so that Teresa can give the one mom a message, but the other mom who was sitting next to her can get the same message. So for instance, last night we had that song. Why was it last night? Why wasn't it 2 months ago or 3 months? And why did I mention it of all things? It was probably your son's way to get you a message to let you know he's here as well. And spirit will do that. It's illogical. I went to go see Teresa Caputo. My dad came through, but she was talking to a man across the whole arena. My dad's name, my sister's name, his inside jokes, items that I have of his. It was my dad, but it was his dad too. So you can make the best of your gallery session or your group event with a medium by listening and paying attention to your spirit piggybacking and giving a few messages. Don't stretch it, right? Because we can always stretch it. but you'll feel it. You get goosebumps. You can know and get the good feeling that it's really them just popping in and saying hi, and they're just piggybacking on another person's message. I've had it happen in almost every event. Like one event, my last event, we had 130 people there, and the number that came through, I don't remember which one it was, but it resonated with like 50 or 60 people, but it was very specific and multiple ways. Like one's birthday, but the other one's death date, but the other one's, if it was 1/3, it was January 3rd was the day their son passed, but 13 was their birthday. But it resonated with half the crowd on multiple levels. And then messages followed up for each of them within, even though I'm only talking to one person. That's kind of a short explanation of how it works. That makes sense.
Wouldn't you agree that the more you trust it and stop questioning it, the stronger you start to, the more you almost start to open up and see the signs and hear them? At least I found that to be my experience early on when I was really skeptical, and it seemed like I didn't feel Tyler as much.
Yeah, that, and being impatient about it, because I always tell, like, some lady came up to me today, she knows I have my gift, and she goes, do you feel anything? And I was like, no, I don't, and I'm not going to make it up. It'll happen when it needs to. All you need to do is set the intention. Hey, listen, Tyler, I'd like you to connect with me at some point, and then pay attention, be patient, and trust. And that's it. I know it seems difficult when it's someone you miss, but they'll come to you and show you ways. Even it's a license plate, it's a sign, it's a song, it's a coin, it's a feather, it's an animal, it's someone says a word, like me. Just for instance, Tyler probably made me give that example from last night of all things, so that you could feel a little bit of sense of peace tonight. So yeah, it's just setting the intention, being patient, pay attention, and trust, and not getting overly like, all right, you didn't come today, you didn't come to me today. And then just know that they will come to you, whether it's in a dream or through a specific sign. And you just have to trust those signs, because sometimes they're a stretch, but you'll know, because we get desperate sometimes, right? But don't stretch it. You'll know when and you'll feel it. You get goosebumps, you get happy. Why? And then you question it, right? I still even do. Like, did that really happen? But it did. And that's their way to communicate. Then I tell people, your reality is like a movie. You're looking at a movie theater screen. All of your loved ones are sitting right next to you. They're watching your movie too, the movie of your life, and they're just rooting you on to choose love. They're with you. They're watching every experience, and sometimes they get to hop into the movie too. Not in the physical way they were there before, but in a subtle way, a feather, a coin, a song, a phone call. I've had parents tell me their phone rings, and it says private call, and it happened at the exact time that they passed. Or so, I've heard those stories over and over, and it'll happen when it needs to. Just don't try not to get patient about it. Just trust it.
Thank you for that. Someone asked a question, Patricia. She says, do you use prayer books?
I mean, my only book that I refer to a lot is the Bible. I don't know if that's a prayer book. I do have, my mom got me this little kind of it's 365 days of like Jesus messages, which I'll look at once in a while, but no, not a specific prayer book.
Okay. Well, we love everything you've had to say. Could you leave us with some final thoughts? It is currently, we have about 3 minutes. So I would highly recommend reading Daniel's books, both of them. If you haven't read Why Are We Here? That one is amazing. And then Journey Through the Mansions is also Journey Through Many Mansions is also wonderful. So anyway, Daniel, thank you. And if you could leave us with some closing statements.
No, just thank you for having me. I mean, I know everyone here has gone through, an unexplainable situation. It doesn't make sense sometimes, but I'll just ask you to trust in something greater that I call God. A lot of people call God, and there's something more behind it. We don't often like the plan. We often don't understand the plan, but trust me, there is one, and your loved ones who passed before you are still with you. Just trust it, pay attention, and know that when you transition to your next life, they'll be all there waiting for you. And from what I've heard, and again, when it's your time, it's your time. We can't make that happen when it's not supposed to, so don't try. But when it is your time to transition, they tell me that it's beautiful. It's amazing. It's better than you can ever even expect. And so throughout your life, and a lot of you have kind of shared with me of going through what you've gone through, that when that time comes, you'll be happy because then you get to be reunited. And I firmly believe that your energy will, and that person will be one of the first people, if not the first person, to grab you and show you what it's like over there. Because from what I've heard, it's absolutely beautiful. And if you haven't watched The Shack, it's a very emotional movie, especially for what you've gone through. But I believe there's so much truth and love in that movie. Get your tissues ready. But I believe that God speaks through that movie, and it can really help a lot of people who've gone through what you've gone through, just to get a little bit more of an understanding on the purpose behind some of these things that happen in this world that, we don't really approve or understand.
Thank you so much. I'm going to ask everyone to unmute and say thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel.
I hope this helped.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Daniel.
Thank you, Daniel.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Carol.
Bye-bye.
Good night.